One's ready. Go!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Daily Drop. This is your news for March 2025. As stated before, this is the news that the commanders and the chiefs receive every single day. It's on the unclassified level, so you don't have to worry about that. Before we get started though, head over to drinkhoist.com, use the promo code ONESREADY, get yourself some IV level hydration. They just released this flavor and a lot of the proceeds are going to Flags of Honor. So donating to a good cause, and you're supporting it. Drinkhoist.com, promo code ONESREADY. Now on to the news. F-35 hits 1 million flight hours as price rise stays below inflation. Air and Space Forces released on 3 March 2025. The F-35 Joint Strike Fighter's unit price will come in below the pace of inflation, Lockheed Martin F-35 General Manager Chauncey McIntosh said during the AFA World Warfare Symposium Monday. The F-35 Joint Program Office and Lockheed reached a, quote, handshake deal on the most recent lot of 145 aircraft for $11.8 billion in November. Oh, those are big boy numbers. The JPO or JPO officials said they would announce the F-35 unit cost when the contract is finalized, which is expected to be the second quarter of this year. Quote, I'm really proud that working with our government customers, working with our supply base, we've really been able to keep the price of the airplane under the inflation curve, McIntosh said. The F-35 recently passed 1 million flight hours, the JPO program executive officer, Lieutenant General Michael Schmidt, said Monday, calling the milestone a testament to the F-35's capability and the resilience and commitment of everyone involved in the program. Awesome. I mean, hey, saving money, I'm on board with it. Number 2, how Trump's Golden Dome could speed up the hypersonic range expansion. Defense News released on 3 March. The Defense Department is examining options to establish new flight corridors over the Pacific Ocean for hypersonic weapons as it considers how to develop President Donald Trump's Golden Dome for America missile defense systems. George Rumford, director of DoD's Test Resource Management Center, said the center is looking at 3 locations, including 1 in Australia and 2 in the United States. Quote, we're going to be making significant modernization upgrades at White Sands to realize an Iron Dome capability at an accelerated pace, end quote. As directed by Trump's January 27 executive order, Rumford said, another executive order calls for the government to establish a National Energy Dominance Council to reduce bureaucracy. You create another council to reduce bureaucracy. I don't necessarily think that's how that works. But what do I know? I'm a nug. I'm a sweaty. Number 3. Empty seats at Air Force limits AFA attendance in line with the spirit of DOGE orders. Breaking news published on 3 March. Attendance is down for the AFA Warfare Symposium in Aurora, Colorado this year as the Department of the Air Force has limited participation in accordance with cost efficiency initiatives introduced by President Donald Trump last month. The Department of the Air Force has limited attendance to individuals with direct roles, senior leaders with previously scheduled industry engagements, and local participants who attend at no cost, a spokesperson said. An industry source said they had seen a drop in meetings with senior service leaders following the order, though other engagements are continuing as planned. Well, sure, but the AFA, the big boy AFA, is in September. So this one's never really been a big AFA, but I think it's probably worth noting that there were empty seats. It's probably back to COVID times. I don't know. I can see why cutting it. I mean, at the same time, I also don't know why we do these things necessarily. There's an obscene amount of money that gets made there in a lot of meetings. I've been to a couple AFAs, and they are a good time. And there are meetings that do get accomplished and kind of backroom deals, like a lot of the A lot of the displays, or whatever you want to call it, there are actually conference rooms inside the displays where people come back there and they meet and they talk through details and that kind of stuff. So there is some good stuff that comes from them for sure. Number 4, why Elon's show your work email freaked out some civilian Pentagon workers. San Antonio Express News, 3 March. Some civilian Defense Department employees said they initially balked at the request from the Office of Personnel Management to list work activities from the previous week because they believed it to be a phishing attempt. DoD employees were advised to, quote, pause any response to the email and wait further instructions based on guidance that OPM is not the military chain of command. This is a true statement. They are the hiring authority, if you will. Not even really the hiring authority, because the active duty members or the other government civilians are the ones that do the hiring. But they're kind of like, OPM's like the human resources side of it, but they actually work for the DoD. So all of that actually makes sense. The Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, clarified on Friday that employees should respond within 48 hours, but should not include classified or sensitive information to their response. In a video Friday, Hegseth said security concerns prompted him to pause any response until DoD could conduct an internal review and consult with OPM. Cool. Number 5. This one's getting spicy, it looks like. Trans airmen, Space Force personnel have until March 26 to resign under Trump order, says in a memo that Fox News released on 3 March. Transgender service members are being urged to resign by March 26th, according to a Defense Department memorandum from the acting Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Manpower and Reserve Affairs on Saturday. Gwendolyn Delafippi said service members eligible for voluntary separation pay would be paid at twice the amount at which they'd be entitled under the involuntary separation pay. The memo was filed Sunday in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia as part of the Talbot versus Trump lawsuit filed by LGBTQIA+ advocacy groups against the Trump administration. I said it before. This is my opinion. I think I'm happy that all this is going on, right? But at the same time, 60 days is not enough. I don't believe that 60 days is enough to get Veterans Affairs, get TMO moving people on and off base to their destinations. Like 60 days is, like, I'm all about being aggressive and not wasting time, but this is super aggressive. So there you go. But that's what it is. So number 6, Fort Benning, Georgia is back, but not in the honor of the Confederate general, the Washington Times released on 3 March. The Defense Department will change the name of Fort Moore, Georgia to Fort Benning, naming it after Army Corporal Fred Benning, who received the Distinguished Service Cross in 1918 for his actions during World War I. In a statement, DoD officials said the change underscores the installation's storied history of service to the United States of America, honors the warfighter ethos, and recognizes the heroes who have trained at the installation for decades and will continue to train on it on its storied ranges. The Army installation, originally named after Confederate General Henry Benning, was renamed Fort Moore in 2023 in honor of Army Lieutenant General Hal Moore, who commanded U.S. forces during Vietnam. That's actually what this should have happened anyway. Imagine the money that would have been saved from changing it in 2023, which was like $60 million, I think. Then also what we've got to do now is change it back, right? Which is going to cost more money as well. They never should have been changed. The administration and whoever figured this out, how to do Fort Bragg, Fort Benning, and keep them the original names by finding actual heroes that did stuff, that, like, whoever wanted to change the names, you guys lost. They won. Congratulations, you played yourself. In Air Force specific news, Chief Staff of the Air Force, Alvin's case for more Air Force. His answer to new administration's priorities, Air and Space Forces, released on 3 March. Chief of Staff General David Alvin pressed for greater investment in Air Force during his keynote addresses at the AFA Warfare Symposium Monday in Aurora, Colorado. Quote, America needs more Air Force, end quote, Alvin said, adding that more Air Force means more tooth to tail. More Air Force, Alvin said means more of the capabilities in the nation, more of the capabilities the nation needs to reestablish deterrence and protect the homeland. Alvin noted that the fleet's average age has nearly doubled over the last 30 years, while aircraft availability rates have dropped from 73% to 54%, and the number of maintenance actions per flying hour have nearly doubled from 1997. Man, I'm having a hard time reading today. No news to anybody else out there, though, because that's pretty standard for me. Alvin said the Air Force is uniquely suited to meet the president's priorities, adding, quote, we have to sustain and maintain the ability to go anytime, anywhere in the most dense threat environment and be able to put warhead on forehead anywhere the president might want. I agree. Man, 73% to 54% aircraft availability rate. We have some aging aircraft. We certainly do. That is unfortunate, and we've kind of done it to ourselves. Acquisitions has done it to ourselves, and we've allowed, Boeing, Lockheed, Raytheon to make these things so complicated. And granted, they're incredibly capable and very smart. But then we talked about the Boeing issue yesterday with the halting the KC-46 Alpha. It's not great. These aircraft are so complicated and so expensive now, and the acquisition of them is insane. And when you think about the size of the Air Force we had in World War II, Vietnam, it dwarfs what we have now. So yeah, I do think the answer is more Air Force. And I don't just mean more Air Forces and more planes, more gadgets, I'm talking about more people as well, because the people are going to be the ones that make all of these things fly and fly these things. So yeah, you need that too. All right. Number 9. America's first unmanned fighters are here. The YFQ-42 and the YFQ-44 Air and Space Forces, released on 3 March. Let's see. The Air Force has issued fighter designations to its first 2 collaborative combat aircraft, Chief of Staff David Alvin said Monday during the AFA Warfare Symposium keynote address. Quote, for the first time in our history, we have a fighter designation of the YFQ-42 Alpha and the YFQ-44 Alpha. It may be just symbolic, but it's telling the world that we are leaning into the new chapter of aerial warfare, Alvin said. CCA aircraft are designed to fly alongside current crewed fighters like the F-35, as well as the future crewed aircraft like the Next Generation Air Dominance Fighter. General Atomics and Endural, manufacturers of the YFQ-42 Alpha and the YFQ-44 Alpha, respectively issued statements celebrating the milestone. Awesome. I can't imagine the coding for that. That's unfreaking real. Number 10. U.S. Air Force announces CCA designations. Looks like it's a repeat. I'm not going to say that one. Right? Or did I? Yeah, that's a repeat one. Number 11. Air Force gives CCA prototypes a name. No. It's a repeat. Another fighter drone is the next one, too. Disney's first uncrewed. Okay, that's enough. Wow. Boy, they really went all into this. Okay, let me try this one. Number 14, 30-year-old airman was fighter to the very end after a brain tumor diagnosis in Alaska, the Tacoma News Tribune released on 3 March. An airman assigned to Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, Alaska, died from a brain tumor last month at a base hospital. Officials at the base said February 26th. February 26th? I don't know. Senior Airman James Misuk, 30, a native of Unalakleet, Alaska, was diagnosed with a astrocytoma early last year. Quote, showing his strength and resilience, he continued to run at least 3 miles a day and never willingly paused performing his duty and responsibilities for the Air Force or as a father and a husband. J-Bear, or Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, official said. Colonel Charles Shuck, commander of the 3rd Wing, said Mixuk's remarkable leadership and unwavering positivity made a profound impact on everybody around him. Man, that sucks, dude. I'm sorry to hear that, and I'm sorry for your family. That's a bummer. Okay, on to space news. Space Force Chief calls for greater focus on space superiority. Space News, 3 March 2025. Chief of Space Operations General Chance Saltzman called on Guardians to embrace their roles as warriors in the space during a keynote address Monday at the AFA Warfare Symposium in Aurora, Colorado. Quote, we must think of space as a warfighting domain rather than just a collection of support activities, Saltzman said. He added that the Space Force achieves space superiority through domain control, a unique role reserved for military forces. Quote, it's not enough to just deliver services from orbit anymore, he said. It's not enough to monitor health and status in a benign environment to design satellites to last in the harsh environment of space. While this is still necessary, it is no longer sufficient, end quote. Saltzman said the Space Force will soon publish new doctrine and guidance on space domain control. Dude, we just had Kid Petit on, who's been to space, and him talking about that environment and how unforgiving it is. I mean, obviously you know that anyway, but when you start thinking about all the little things like trying to do CPR in a zero gravity situation, like it's kind of weird. It's things that you don't really think about. Space Force leader calls on Guardians to help develop solutions. The Gazette released on 3 March 2025. The Space Force needs Guardians to develop solutions rather than waiting for leaders. Completely agree. Same with the Air Force. Chief of Space Operations General Chance Saltzman said during a keynote speech at the AFA Warfighter Symposium on Monday, I need Guardians in the field to find a way, Saltzman said. This is a partnership. The headquarters will drive everything it can from the top down, but I need you to meet us from the bottom up. The Space Force expects an effective cut in the budget with an increase from FY24 to FY25, not quite meeting the pace of inflation, and the Defense Department expected to cut its overall civilian force by 5 to 8%. Saltzman said he needs Guardians to communicate needs and changes to further the service's space superiority mission, adding, quote, things are probably going to get a lot harder before they get easier. Okay, a couple things on this. If you thought that inflation just affects you and you're buying eggs and you're buying gas, wrong. It impacts the military too. So inflation is a bad thing, very, very bad thing. I agree with CSO here. However, what are you going to do to empower them? And what are your officers and what are your senior NCOs and NCOs going to do to empower and then also feel empowered? I agree. They need to make change. They need to find solutions and find a way to let's empower them. Allow them to do that. Allow them to make mistakes. Encourage them to step out of their own comfort zone, and don't punish them when they make mistakes, because they are going to make mistakes. You want them to make mistakes because that's what they're going to learn from. And that's also where you find that kind of goodness, when you actually do try something because you're not scared of getting in trouble. You're not scared of failing, and then something incredible happens. So looks like this is another, it's a same kind of thing. So these are of interest. Number 18, Trump pauses all U.S. military aid to Ukraine after angry clash with Zelensky, Reuters wrote on 3 March 2025. President Donald Trump paused military aid to Ukraine Monday following a meeting with the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, White House official said. Quote, President Trump has been clear that he is focused on peace, a White House official said on Background Monday. We need our partners to be committed to that goal as well. We are pausing and reviewing our aid to ensure that it is contributing to a solution, Trump warned Zelensky on Monday via social media that the United States has a little appetite for continued hostilities between Ukraine and Russia. Trump suggested that the United States and the Ukraine would still reach a deal on mineral rights, though Zelensky has requested U.S. security guarantees, which Trump administration has not offered. I don't have the energy to even go into that because it is so crazy. The exchange that happened was on Friday, and all the people that are all over social media virtue signaling because they watched the first 2 minutes or 5 minutes of it instead of watching the whole thing. And so it's wild to me. But number 19, this is kind of interesting. A mayor exit? Question mark. Republicans push for U.S. to leave NATO amid stalled Ukraine peace negotiations. Fox News released on 3 March 2025. A handful of Republican lawmakers proposed that the United States leave the NATO alliance following an unsuccessful meeting between President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Friday. Senator Mike Lee, Republican from Utah, and Representative Thomas Massie, Republican from Kentucky, echoed support by SpaceX CEO Elon Musk to withdraw from the alliance, though doing so would require an act of Congress. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth advised NATO members to increase their contributions to defense of Europe during the meeting in Brussels last month, adding, quote, NATO is a great alliance and the most successful defense alliance in history, but to endure for the future, our partners must do far more for Europe's defense, end quote. Completely agree, and I actually don't think that President Trump has any intention of withdrawing from NATO. I think this is just, it's a threat, change your ways, or else we're leaving, because we still fund NATO more than anybody else. So, and this is a European problem. Yeah, okay, you could, by proxy, you could say it's a NATO problem, but if European nations that are the ones directly impacted by this aren't ponying up their, quote unquote, fair share, then the U.S. shouldn't have to as well, or shouldn't be expected to. Number 20, China's military puts Pacific on notice as U.S. priorities shift. New York Times released on 3 March 2025. Chinese military exercises near Australia and Vietnam convey a message that the Indo-Pacific region shouldn't ignore Chinese military power, analysts said. The exercises were designed to show the scale and scope of the People's Liberation Army, said Win. I can't pronounce that name. A visiting fellow of the ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute in Singapore. Of course. Experts said China appears to be pressuring governments to accommodate the Chinese government and relinquish their claims in the South China Sea. American Enterprise Institute senior fellow Dan Blumenthal said China's displays matter because China's threat to escalate is credible. Sure, I guess. 21. Private F-16 aggressors getting ability to insert synthetic bandits into live training. The War Zone, 3 March 2025. Private adversary air company Top Aces previewed its constructive wingman capability, which is set to begin initial tests and evaluation this spring. During the AFA Warfare Symposium on Monday, the program comprises of augmented reality aircraft that can be digitally inserted into the sensor displays of aggressors and Blue Force aircraft using AI and flight algorithms powered by applied intuition. Mixing constructive and live aircraft could provide F-35 Joint Strike Fighters with valuable experience, said Aaron Stiffens, Top Aces director of. All right, I got to be careful with this one. If I'm being careful of this because of where I worked, we had direct tie with this, and where I'm potentially working in the future. So if this augmented reality and the live construction environment does not provide physics-based threats, physics-based solutions, then it's not worth it. That's all I'll say. So if it's going to, great. If not, no big deal. And if you understand what I'm talking about when I say physics-based solutions within the simulated environment, like, then you're ahead of the game. 22, this is an opinion piece. We cannot defeat tomorrow's enemies with yesterday's budgets. The Washington Post, published on 3 March. Mitch McConnell of Congress is what? It says Congress is closer than ever to going to the entire year without passing a budget for national defense, warned Senator Mitch McConnell, representative of Kentucky. Dude, you're still around. In an op-ed for the Washington Post, we owe it to the men and women in uniform and the taxpayers to be honest about the consequences, he writes. By March 14th, the failure to pass full-year defense appropriations last fall will have cost taxpayers $17 billion in defense buying power. Spending an entire year under FY24 funding levels would cut off funding for 168 new programs, many of which are designed to outcompete China in the space and cyberspace domains, McConnell writes. There's no way McConnell wrote this. Have you guys seen him? Quote, China certainly isn't hamstrung by these kinds of challenges, he argues, adding that European nations have outpaced the United States recently with increases to defense spending and committed to buying $185 billion in the U.S.-made weapons and defense systems. He did not write it. Somebody else did. However, I do agree with it. You can't keep stringing the DoD along. We've got shit to buy. We got shit to do. We got programs to run. We've got training to do. And when we start talking about what CSAF Alvin said about we need more Air Force and bureaucracy's getting in the way, like, this does not help. So Congress, get your shit together. All right, last one. I feel like this one's shorter today, or maybe I'm just not riffing on it as much as I normally do. So this is number 23 and the last one, and it's an opinion piece as well. Why can't the Pentagon's army of budget bean counters shoot straight? Real Clear Investigations, published on 3 March 2025. Accounting deficiencies in the Defense Department reflect more widespread of financial disorder, argue Bob Ivory and Jeremy Portnoy, who were the authors of this, who are investigative reporters for Real Clear Investigations. Researchers found that 15 of the DoD's 28 financial subcomponents received disclaimers on their accounting practices, and the department's 2024 audit included an increase in material weakness from the first audit in 2018. Former DoD Inspector General Robert Storch noted in January that the government travel card program failed to comply with policies, procedures, or the Visa IntelliLink compliances management data mining system, adding, quote, the DoD must take steps to ensure the adherence to internal controls to be a good steward of the taxpayer dollars. I agree. Ivory and Portnoy conclude, quote, the Pentagon doesn't appear to have a battle plan to turn around 7 straight years of audit failures. This is the context in which the world's wealthiest man and his Doge team will be asked to perform a long-awaited miracle of straightening out the Pentagon's finances, end quote. Yeah, dude, the government travel card is such a shit show. How does the Pentagon's fail 7 different years of audits, or 7 years of audits? That's a foul. No freaking way. There's no way this should happen. Anyway, that has been your 4 March daily drop. Keep training hard. Don't forget to go over to ONESREADY.com, pick up yourself a piece of merch. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell. And hope you're doing well. All right, out here. Later.